Another very lovely evening out there to all of you, my dear friends. It's very cold right now, so that's the reason for the boggin. I usually don't wear any headdress, but I think it's like 12 degrees right now, no joke. And this is the warmest it's been all day, so I thought I would go ahead and make a video. Today is a pretty easy topic to explain. A lot of people get tripped up about this. The fact that God, he even says of himself in the scriptures how he is a jealous God. And this is noted in both the Old Testament and even in the New Testament and Paul's letter to the Corinthians, as we'll get into. It's noted about how God is a jealous God. And this has really thrown a lot of people who are ignorant of context and the meaning behind scripture. This has really thrown a lot of people a curveball, and it's very unnecessary because it's easily explained. Oprah Winfrey is probably the best example to show how people, they get this distorted within their minds, because she says this was whenever she began to seek out other paths to God and leave that of Christianity.
I happened to be sitting in church in my late 20s, and I was going to this church where you had to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, or you couldn't get a seat, and a very charismatic minister, and everybody was just into the sermon. And this great minister was preaching about how great God was and how omniscient and omnipresent, and God is everything. And then he said, and the Lord thy God is a jealous God. And I was, caught up in the rapture of that moment until he said jealous. And something struck me. And I was like, I think about 27 or 28. I was thinking, God is all, God is omnipresent, God is all, and God's also jealous. God is jealous of me. And something about that didn't feel right in my spirit.
It seems rather a petty human emotion that God would fall prey to jealousy of all things.
Okay, well,
and him being all powerful, omniscient, and everything like
what
that.
What is jealousy?
Just envy over something.
Okay, well, you're a young guy. I don't suppose you're married, but let's suppose you are married. If you're married to somebody and your wife goes off with somebody else, should you be jealous of that?
And this is the reason why idolatry is likened to adultery in the scripture, because God, he views himself as the husband to the church, and which is his bride. That's why we're called the bride of Christ. It's in Exodus chapter 20, verse 4, where we begin to read about the jealousy of God in regards to this idolatry, and he's giving them the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, speaking of idols, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. And again, it's the very same jealousy as that of a husband. Proverbs 6:34 speaks of the rage that a jealous husband feels whenever he finds out that his wife has cheated on him, and the wrath that he feels towards the entire scenario altogether. We read this in Proverbs 6, for jealousy is the rage of a man, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. Speaking of a jealous husband, he will not regard any ransom, neither will he rest content, though thou givest many gifts. In other words, you can't bribe a husband in whom you've so wronged. The main slip up whenever it comes to this distortion of what it means for God to be jealous comes with them believing that envy and jealousy are one and the same thing, whenever they're very much not. Envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. Jealousy, however, is fiercely protective or vigilant of one's rights or possessions. Envy is in regards to what belongs to someone else. Jealousy is whenever what belongs to you is suddenly being taken away. You're jealous of that thing. You're not envious of someone else's possessions. We're told over and over again about how being envious of other people's things and coveting what is someone else's is a sin. That is not the way that God feels. This is only if you belong to him. In 1 Corinthians 6:20, we read this, for ye, speaking to the children of God, for ye are bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. We belong to God, as we read also in the book of Acts. Acts chapter 20, verse 28, feed the church of God, which he, God, hath purchased with his own blood. My dear friends, we have been purchased with the death of Christ. That's God in the flesh. God died for us, shed his blood for us. Therefore, that is the price that he paid to die and suffer and rise again for us in order to purchase us for him to be with him in eternity forever and ever. When writing to the Corinthians, Paul the Apostle also brings up this idolatry mixed with the jealousy of God. Whenever we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils. Do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? Paul is there warning the church, Christians in general, against conforming to the world. The old Bible commentator Albert Barnes wrote this in closing: any inordinate love of friends, of property, of honor has substantially the same idolatrous nature and will tend to provoke God to anger. And it may be asked of Christians now whether they will by such inordinate attachments provoke the Lord to wrath. Very often Christians do thus provoke him. They become unduly attached to a friend or to wealth, and God in anger takes away that friend or that property, or they conform to the world and mingle in its scenes of fashion and gaiety and forget God. And in displeasure he visits them with judgments, humbles them, and recalls them to himself. And it's with this, my dear friends, that we know that he is jealous over us. He's not envious of anything. He owns everything. He created everything. There is no envy with God, no covetousness with God, but he is jealous over us. He does not want us to go on out here and to be with the world. Once again, he purchased us with his own blood. You are no longer your own. You belong to God.